Begin today on Daf Lamed Ches, right at the top of the Yamud. It said in the Mishnah, Shavuos or Shavuos Apikoden Keitzad. When one makes a Shavuah, swears falsly about a deposit he has in his possession. So the Mishnah gives examples. Tenli Pikoden Sheshli B'yodcha Chulu. If a person says, pay me this Pikoden, and he denies it, so then he's chayiv once. But then the Mishnah brought other examples where he was asked for more than one thing. And the person responded, if he gives a general response, an all-inclusive response, then he'll be chayiv only once. But if he specifies that I don't have not this, and not this, the different things that he asked from him, so then I'll be chayiv for each one separately. The Mishnah brought a few opinions about this. So the Gemara here will bring a brayse and explain the pshat in this brayse that will explain the opinions about this. Okay, so Tana Rabbana, we learned in the brayse, kolal, if he's swearing falsely and he uses an all-inclusive term on everything that was demanded from him, then he'll be chayiv only once. Parat, if however he specifies, then chayiv kolachas vachas. Then he'll be chayiv for each thing that he denied having separately, he'll be chayiv. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion. Now, in the words of Rab Meir here, it's not clear what exactly means kolal, what falls into this category of all-inclusive, and what exactly means that he specified. So the Gemara will explain. There'll be a machlokes about this. Now, Rabbi Yehuda argues and says, Shvuah loy lecha v'loy lecha v'loy lecha. If he's swearing, and there's a few people that were demanding from him money, and he swears and specifies, not you, and not you, and not you, then chayiv kolachas vachas. Will be chayiv for each one of them separately. Okay, so now we see that Rabbi Yehuda is saying specifically this case. It would seem that this is the case Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir argue about. Now just pay attention here to the language of the Gemara. What did Rabbi Yehuda say? Loy lecha, v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha. Meaning that's with a vav. He's saying to each one, but he's adding you and not you and not you and not you. Then it'll be chayiv for each one. That's the case that Rabbi Yehuda speaks about and says chayiv each one. Okay, now Rabbi Eliezer Omer, or Rabbi Elazar Omer, this is like it was quoted in the Mishnah, his opinion, that when he says loy lecha, v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha, so he specified all for all these people, and then he added shvuah, he's swearing that he's not chayiv to any of them, so he said in the end, after he specified all of them, he says, a shvuah for each one of you that I don't owe, chayiv kolachas vachas. Only if he specifies in the end the word shvuah again, then he'll be chayiv for each one. Rab Shimon Omer, that's not enough. In order to separate that he should be chayiv for each time, ad sheyoma shvuah l'chol achas vachas. Only if he repeated again and again, a shvuah not for you, a shvuah not for you, and so on, then he'll be chayiv for each one separately.
As we say 3 times the word shvuah.
Yeah, exactly. That's according to Rab Shimon. Okay, so now the machlokes of Rab Elazar and Rab Shimon is pretty clear, but the machlokes of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda is not clear. As I mentioned, when Rab Meir says kolal, parat, he said all-inclusive term, or he specified, it doesn't say clearly what it is that he's talking about. So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda explains the name of Shmuel as follows: Klala shel Rab Meir is protei shel Rab Yehuda. What Rab Meir considers to be an inclusive term, and he's chayiv only once, that's what Rabbi Yehuda is coming to argue on and say that no, this is considered to be that he's specifying, and it's chayiv each one separately. Okay, so in other words, Shmuel is learning the pshat in what Rabbi Yehuda is saying. Rabbi Yehuda says, loy lecha, v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha. So he's specifying each one, but again, he's adding a vav here. For each one, he's adding a vav. This is the case that Rabbi Yehuda is mentioning that it'll be chayiv for each one. Why is Rabbi Yehuda mentioning this case? He's coming to argue on Rabbi Meir. So with the way Shmuel understands this brayse is, the reason Rabbi Yehuda is mentioning this and arguing with this case is because it's this case that Rabbi Meir said that you would be chayiv only once. And Rabbi Yehuda is coming to argue and saying, no, if you say loy lecha, v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha with that vav, so because he's saying vav, so he's adding, and additionally, so therefore he's going to be chayiv each one of them separately. That's what the argument is. But now he actually also says that it works also in the reverse. That Pirotoi shel Rabbi Yehuda, the case that Rabbi Yehuda considers to be a prat, 1 second, I'm not reading it right. I'm holding where it says Klali Shel Rabbi Yehuda. That's where I'm holding. Sorry, that goes back to before. I'm holding at the beginning of the line. Klali. Okay, Klali Shel Rabbi Yehuda. The case that Rabbi Yehuda considers to be a klal, all inclusive, Pratil Shel Rabbi Meir. In that case, Rabbi Meir would argue and say that no, that is considered to be specifying. You would be chayiv for each one separately. What is the Gemara referring to over here with this? The Gemara here is referring to a case where the person said loy lacha, loy lacha, loy lacha without a vav, without adding that vav in. But he is saying not you, not you, not you, but without a vav. So in this case, Rabbi Yehuda holds that because he didn't say a vav and, so it's all considered to be one big shvuah, and he's chayiv only once. And where do we see this in the language of Rabbi Yehuda? Because Rabbi Yehuda said specifically, shvuah loy lacha, vil loy lacha, vil loy lacha, then he's chayiv on each one. So only because he added that vav, it's this case that's considered to be each one separate. But if he did not add that vav, Rabbi Yehuda holds, then in this case, he's going to be chayiv one for all of it. But in this case, actually, Rabbi Meir disagrees. On this case, Rabbi Meir holds that when he says loy lacha, loy lacha, loy lacha, without the vav, he's going to be chayiv for each one separately. Okay, that's because when Rabbi Meir says klal, Rabbi Meir says klal means a case where he's saying with the vav, that's the klal. The vav means that it's considered to be one. And when he says prat means without the vav. That's when it's considered to be specifying. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it's actually the opposite is true. When it's with a vav, then I say it's considered to be that he's specifying each one separately. When it's without a vav, then it's considered to be one shvuah together as one.
Makes sense.
Well, it's the argument here between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, they're arguing in their opposite opinions. What that vav does. The Gemara never explains what the pshat in the smachlokes here is. In Rishayim it says that the explanation here of the smachlokes is, how do we view when a person adds this vav in? What is the vav coming to do? There's two ways to understand what that vav is doing there. Either the vav is coming to say that I'm adding the second shvuah, that it should be included in the first. He says the shvuah in the beginning, and then he says that shvuah is not for you and not for you. So the and is actually coming to say that the second one belongs to the first shvuah. So it's considered to be a klal. It's not separate. Or no, or the way we are to understand the vav is the opposite. He's coming to say, I'm making one shvuah for you. The vav means that I want to add another shvuah for you. So the vav is actually adding another shvuah, and so therefore the vav means he's adding another shvuah. That's the shaila over here. How do we view this, the vav over here?
Okay, so in that case, all three of them will be chayav.
Yeah, if you say that the vav, Rabbi Yehuda says each vav is adding a separate shvuah, and therefore you'd be chayav each one of them separately. Yeah. Okay, this is according to Shmuel. Rabbi Yochanan Omar, however, Rabbi Yochanan says this is not how we are to understand this machlokes here. Hakol Maidim, everybody agrees. If there is a vav there, and he said vil loy lacha shu prat, the vav means that he's adding another shvuah, not adding to the first shvuah, but adding another shvuah. So in that case, everybody would agree that it's considered to be specifying yechayev more than once. Loy nechlaku ela beloy lacha. The argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda is when he said loy lacha, loy lacha, loy lacha without adding that vav. What's the halach in such a case? Rabbi Meir oime prat. This Rabbi Meir considers to be a prat, that it's each one separate. And with Rabbi Yehuda oime klal. And Rabbi Yehuda says that is considered to be a klal if without the vav. Vav means adding, but without the vav, then I say it's considered to be all a continuation, and yechayev only once. Now, veizel klal shel Rabbi Meir. If even Rabbi Meir agrees that when you're saying the vav, that it's all considered to be one, it's considered to be all separate. So what is the case that Rabbi Meir says that if it's all inclusive, that'll be chayav only once? That's only the case of shvuah she'el lechem biyodi. If he says a term where he says once and he includes everything in one, I shvuah for all of you that I don't know any of you, then it'll be chayav only once. That's the case that Rabbi Meir meant when he said klal. Okay, so now the Gemara will explain where Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan took their interpretations of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda's opinions here, or really basically Rabbi Meir's opinion. That's what they really are arguing about. The main machlokes here between Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan is regarding Rabbi Meir's opinion when he adds the vav. Loy lacha, vil loy lacha, vil loy lacha. What's the halach in such a case? So according to Shmuel, in such a case, Rabbi Meir holds that it's considered to be a klal. It's all inclusive. And Rabbi Yochanan says, no, everybody agrees when you add the vav that it's considered to be separating. It's a prat, that you're separating each one. So that's where their argument really is. In Rabbi Meir's opinion, when you added that vav. Okay, so now where did they take their machlekes? In the language of this Braise, and the Gemara will also bring from the Mishnah. But Maika Mifligi, what's the source of their machlekes? Shmuel Dayek mi Braise. Shmuel is Medayek, his interpretation of their machlekes from the language of the Braise. But Rabbi Yochanan Dayek Masnissen. And Rabbi Yochanan took his interpretation from what he sees from the Mishnah in the beginning of the Perek, as we had before in the Flamet Vav. And the Gemara explains, Shmuel Dayek mi Braise. Shmuel is Medayek from what it says in the Braise, because Midika Amar Rabbi Yehuda. When Rabbi Yehuda is arguing with Rabbi Meir, what does Rabbi Yehuda say? That V'loi L'cha, when you say V'loi L'cha with a Vav, Prata Have, that's considered to be specifying Yechayef each one separately. So Meklal, from that we understand, the Shami le Rabbi Meir, the Amad that Rabbi Yehuda heard, that when Rabbi Meir says that for a klal Yechayev only once, what is that klal? He understood that, or he heard that Rabbi Meir said that when you add a vav, klal have, that's considered to be all one. And v'amalei Rabbi Yehuda, it's on this that Rabbi Yehuda is arguing, prat have, that this case is considered to be a prat. So from the language of the Braise, it's clear, it seems pretty clear that this is the case where he's adding a vav that they're arguing about. And according to Rabbi Meir, adding a vav means that it's all one. However, Rabbi Yochanan will answer you and say, really, tarvayu le Rabbi Meir prata have. Rabbi Meir, when he says that if you specify, then you'll be chayav for each one separately. That's whenever you add loy lecha, whether with a vav, whether without a vav, as long as you didn't say lochem in one inclusive term, as long as you just added loy lecha, whether with a vav, without a vav, that's all considered to be specifying, and you'll be chayav for each one separately. Now, how do we understand what Rabbi Yehuda is telling Rabbi Meir when Rabbi Yehuda is arguing with Rabbi Meir? And Rabbi Yehuda says to Rabbi Meir, you say that whether with a vav or without a vav, he's going to be chayav each one separately? No, I say only if it's with a vav, there I agree to you that I'll be chayav. The vav means that it's separate, and I'll be chayav each one separately. But b'loy lecha, however, and this Rabbi Yehuda did not say clearly, but from this we understand that if it's loy lecha without a vav, then palikna lech. There I argue, and I would consider that to be all one shvua. That's the way Rabbi Yochanan understands this. Now Shmuel responds to this and says that this pshat in Rabbi Yehuda's words doesn't really fit, because the Shmuel would tell you when Rabbi Yehuda is coming to say his opinion according to the pshat of Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yehuda is only telling you what he agrees to Rabbi Meir. He's not telling you the case that he argues with Rabbi Meir. Why would he not first say his opinion, what he argues with Rabbi Meir? So ad oidile, instead of Rabbi Yehuda explaining what it is that he agrees to, lifleg alei eflugi, he should clarify what it is that he argues about. Right, so instead of saying, regarding the case of ve with the vav, there I agree to you that it's considered to be separate. And he doesn't even mention regarding the case without a vav that he argues. But that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't he explain clearly his opinion that without a vav, that's the case where he argues and he considers it to be one? Okay, so therefore, the pshat in the Braise is much better according to Shmuel. Okay, says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan daik masnisen. Rabbi Yochanan, though, he's medayik from the Mishnah, and there it's mashma like his pshat. Why? Because Midikam Rabbi Meir. In the Mishnah, Rabbi Meir says, Shvuah she'ein lochem biyodi klal hava. The Mishnah, the Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, and he says in the Mishnah, when a person says the term of ein lochem, that's one. That's all inclusive. Now, Miklal, from this you understand, the vil loy locha, when he says vil loy locha even with a vav, prata, that's considered to be specifying. Not like Shmuel. Shmuel says that according to Rabbi Meir, vil loy with the vav still all means one. So the lashon of our Mishnah is mashma that vil loy with a vav is prata, is specifying, and he's chayav each one separately. Because the Yislak at Aitach, if you would say, like Shmuel's opinion, that Viloy Locha with a Vav Klala Have, that's still considered to be all-inclusive. So then Adamash Malon, Shvuah She'ein Lechem B'Yadi, he's teaching that when you say the term Lechem, Yechayev only once, let him say a bigger Chiddush. Neshmi'in on Shvuah Loy Locha, Viloy Locha with a Vav, and that even there, that it's all one. And Kolshkein Shvuah She'ein Lechem B'Yadi, it'll be self-understood that when he says just Lechem, really including it all in one word, that it would be one. So from the lashon of our Mishnah, it's pretty clear that only lechem is considered to be one shvuah. But a Shmuel will answer and say there's no proof from our Mishnah, because kala oimer v'loy lecha, if you're adding that vav there, it's ka'omer shvur shel nechem b'yadi, dami. It's the exact same thing. The vav means you're adding to what was before, not adding a new shvur, but you're adding it to be included in the first shvur, and therefore the Mishnah would not have to specify this case of v'loy lecha. It's identical to the case of lechem, therefore there's no raya from our Mishnah. Okay, now the Gemara is going to try to bring rayas against Shmuel from the lashon of our Mishnah, that what it said afterwards. So again, as I mentioned, the main machlokes of Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan is according to Rabbi Meir regarding a case of ve loy lecha. According to Shmuel, that's one shvua, and according to Rabbi Yochanan, ve loy means another shvua. So now Tanan, what did it say in our Mishnah? What is an example where it's considered to be a separate shvua? So the lashon of our Mishnah was loy lecha, ve loy lecha, ve loy lecha. He's saying to different people, and he's saying it with the vav. So what did it say in the Mishnah? In this case, it's chayav each one separately. So it's very clear, not like Shmuel. This is a stam Mishnah according to Rabbi Meir, and v means separate for each one. So Shmuel will have to say, Tni loy lecha. You have to amend the Mishnah, take out the vav. You read the Mishnah loy lecha without a vav, then he's chayav separately. The Mishnah repeats again a similar thing regarding another case. Tashema, the Mishnah says, Tenli pekadon usesumis yad v'gezel va'aveda. A person is demanding from someone a deposit, a loan, and the gezel, stealing, or aveda, lost object, and here the Mishnah uses a vav in all of these words, and he swears on each one of them separately with a vav. And what does the Mishnah say? With the vav, he's chayav each one separately. So that's not like Shmuel. So again, the Gemara says, Tani, you have to amend the Mishnah, Sasumis Yad, Gezel, Aveda, without a vav. Same thing is with the next example of the Mishnah. Toshma, the Mishnah said, Tan li chitim usa ayrin vikusmin, with a vav, wheat, barley, and spelt. And the Mishnah says he's chayav each one separately, with a vav. So again, Shmuel says to me, you have to learn our Mishnah, Sa'ayrin, Kusmin, without a vav. Only then will you be chayav each one separately. Okay, so now Shmuel is forced to amend the Mishnah in all of these cases, to take out the vav. So the Gemara asks, V'hai Tana, is the Tana of a Mishnah called Hachi Shabish? To this extent, he quoted, it's a mistake here. All of these vavs that it said are all a mistake, and you have to change the language of a Mishnah. Again, Kol Hachi Shabish Tani Va'azul. He kept on repeating the same mistake with the vav, and you have to change all of this. So therefore the Gemara suggests a different pshat for Shmuel. There's another Tana that is the Tana of our Mishnah, and there Shmuel would agree, according to this Tana, that with a vav it's considered to be separate. So Elohamani Rebbe. This follows the opinion of Rebbe. The Omar, Rebbe says that when you use two words, whether it's with the vav, whether it's without a vav, it doesn't matter, it's considered to be separate. But this is only Rebbe. Where does Rebbe say this? The Omar Rebbe says, this is a halacha by a carbon. When a person has the kain that's doing the avodah by a carbon, and he has the wrong intention with the carbon that he's bringing, or doing the avodah for the carbon, and he verbalizes this wrong intention, and he says, one kazayis and another kazayis, whether it's with a vav or without a vav. So not loishna, kazayis. It doesn't make a difference if he verbalizes the wrong intention he has, and he says one kazayis of this carbon, and he says a kazayis without a vav, or loishna kazayis u kazayis. Even if he says kazayis u kazayis, parata hava. It's considered to be two separate statements that he said. The vav does not make it one statement. The vav, it's still considered to be a separate statement, just like without the vav. Okay, this is a halacha that's negay over there by the halachas of Pigul. I don't want to get into the details over there, but the point is that over there, the kazayis, the vav doesn't make it one statement. It's still considered to be two statements. So according to Rebbe, it's the same in our Mishnah. The vav does not make it a klal, it doesn't make it one inclusive shvua, it's still considered to be a separate shvua. So our Mishnah is Rebbe. Tashema, the Gemara brings a raya now from in our Mishnah where it actually quotes Rab Meir by name, and Rab Meir himself is speaking. So the whole machlekes here is regarding when there's a vav according to Rab Meir. So what does it say in our Mishnah? Mididei, from Rab Meir himself. The Mishnah says, Rab Meir said that afil chita usa'ira v'kaisemes chayev. Before the Mishnah spoke about chitim, sa'irim, kosmin in the plural term, that he was demanded to pay wheat, barley, and spelt. And here Rab Meir says, even if it's just one barley, or one wheat, one barley, and one spelt, he'll be chayev as well. What is Rab Meir saying over here? So he says chayav kolachas v'achas will be chayav for each one separately. So it seems like what Rab Meir is coming to say is that even if there's a vav there, he said chita usa'ira v'kaisemes, there's a vav there, and yet it's considered to be separate and will be chayav for each one separately. So that's a question on Shmuel that says that with a vav you chayav only once. So the Gemara says again tni chita sa'ira kaisemes. Now according to Shmuel you have to read here in the Mishnah chita sa'ira kaisemes without a vav. So now the Gemara explains what was Rab Meir saying here. My afilu. What was the chiddush of Rab Meir regarding this case that you would be chayiv separately for each one? If it was with a vav, you could say the chiddush is even if there's a vav there. But if there's no vav, what exactly is Rab Meir saying more than what the Tana of the Mishnah said before? Before the Mishnah spoke about chitim in the plural term, and he's saying chita and sayra kisemis in a singular term. What exactly is Rab Meir coming to add here? Amar Ravache bereid Ravike. Ravike explains, afilu chita b'chlal chitin, usa'ira b'chlal sa'irin, or kisemes b'chlal kusmen. The term chita that's used, even though it sounds like you're talking about one kernel of wheat, or one kernel of barley, or one kernel of spelt, but the term chita could mean a lot of wheat, or a lot of barley, or a lot of spelt. Because you see in the Torah also it uses the term chita and it means a lot. It doesn't just mean one. So over here as well, he's coming to say that even though the term chita was used, so according to one pshat, what this means is, what was demanded of this person is just chita sayre kusemes, which may be a tiny amount. It's not even worth a shav of pruta. So if it's not a value of even a pruta, you wouldn't be chayiv for this. But nevertheless, Rab Meir says that this term chita sayre kusemes could mean a lot of wheat and a lot of barley and spelt, and you still would be chayiv for this. That's one pshat in the Gemara here. This is the pshat that the Tosfos Yom Tov says in the Gemara. There are other pshatim, but that's one pshat. Okay, moving on now to the next thing in the Mishnah, where it said in the Mishnah, Tenli pikadin u'sesum misyad gezel v'aveda sheyeshli biyotcha chulu, that he's being demanded to pay all these different kind of things, a deposit, a loan, and a robbery, and a lost item. Or the Mishnah went on to say, Tenli chitin u'sa'irin. He says, pay me wheat, barley. So here's where the Mishnah said, if he makes one Shavuos with an inclusive term for all of it, he'll be chayiv once. But if he specifies, ein l'cha biyadi, you don't have, and then he says, not chitin, not seira, not kesemes, all these things, then he'll be chayiv each one separately. Now, Amar Rabbi Yechanan said on this Mishnah, pruta mikulan mitztarefes. The minimum amount, as mentioned, to be chayiv for swearing falsely on something that you owe someone has to be the amount of a pruta. Now, over here, you have all these different types that come together. If you want to have a pruta, and you could only come to the amount of a pruta only when you combine everything, all the different things together, you could combine it all to come to the amount of a pruta that he would be chayiv. Okay, now exactly what case Rabbi Yechanan was referring to, we'll see now, based on the argument that the Gemara brings. This is actually an argument that the Gemara brought earlier in the Masechta. So, Pliga bar Ravache v'Ravina. Ravache and Ravina argue about the case where a person did specify. The case where the person did say, Shavuos she'en lecha biyadi, and then he said, not chitin, not sayre, not kesemes, so he's chayiv for each one separately. On this case, there's a machlokes. Chad Amar, one opinion is, a proti mechayiv. For each detail that he specified will be chayiv, but a klali loy mechayiv. For the general term that he uses in the beginning of the Shavuot, he's not going to be chayiv another time. So if he said, Shavuos she'en lecha biyadi, and then he said, what don't you have in my hands? Chitin, sayre, and kusman. So, or he specified each one of them, he'll be chayiv separately 3 times. But for the term that he said in the beginning, Shavuos she'en lecha biyadi, that's not a separate Shavuot that he'll be chayiv for. He'll be chayiv only 3 times. But v'chadam, another opinion is, aklali nami mechayiv. He'll be chayiv also for the term that he said in the beginning. When he says Shavuos she'en lecha biyadi, right there he's chayiv once, because he's denying everything. Then when he specifies, not chitin, not sa'irim, not kusmin, now he's chayiv 3 times, means he's going to be chayiv in total 4 times over here in this case. That's the other opinion about this. So, which means that when Rabbi Yechanan says you could combine, regarding what cases Rabbi Yechanan is saying you could combine, when he's chayiv for each one separately, there it's not possible to combine, because he's chayiv for each one separately. But according to the opinion that says that over here he's not chayiv for the klali, he's not chayiv for the inclusive term that he used in the beginning. So Rabbi Yechanan was talking about a case where he said, I'm not chayiv any of this. So only when he said, I'm not chayiv any of this, all in one, there you could combine all of the types to come up to the pruta. But according to the other opinion, even when he specifies each one separately, besides being chayiv for each one separately, he's also chayiv for the general term that he said in the beginning over there. Regarding that general term he said in the beginning, you could combine that he would be chayiv, he'll be chayiv over there to combine it to a pruta. Okay, so that's the machlokes here. So now the Gemara brings on this, but v'hatani Rab Chiya. Rab Chiya said, on this case of the Mishnah, the example of the Mishnah was that there were three things that were demanded from this person, chita, sa'ira, and kusman. So Rab Chiya said, what's if it's 5 people? The Mishnah also gave the example of 5 different people. 5 people are demanding. So what's if it's 5 people that are demanding from someone to pay these 3 items of chitim, sa'irim, and kusman? So Rab Chiya says in this, if he denies all of this and he divides each one separately, when he denies and swears falsely, he's going to be chayiv 15 chatois for this. Now, why? Because 3 times 5, so he's chayiv 15. But the question is, if the opinion that says that besides the 3 things, the 3 items that he denies, there's the inclusive term in the beginning, and that's an additional time he's chayiv. If so, esrim havyan. It should be 20, because it's 4 for each one of them. So why is it only 15? So the Gemara explains, Hi Tana, this Tana, the prati kachashiv, the klali loy kachashiv. He's only counting the 15 times that you're chayiv for what he specified. The inclusive term that he said in the beginning, he's also chayiv for that, but he doesn't count that. Now, in the Gemara, we find actually the opposite. V'atani Rab Chiya taught in a braise that harekan esrim chatois, that you would be chayiv 20 chatois, seemingly regarding the same case. So that actually proves the opposite. That it's not only, we don't only count by 5 people for the 3 minim, 5 times 3, which is 15, but there's also an additional, the beginning, which is an inclusive term, so he would be chayiv 20. So the Gemara answers, that's not the same case. That Braisa that Rab Chiya taught is in the case where it was 4 items actually. It was a pikodain, sesumis yad, gezel, aveda, a deposit, a loan, a robbery, and an aveda. So therefore there's 4 items here. And 4 times 5 was 5 people that are demanding these 4 items, will be chayiv 20 times. Rav asked Rav Nachman the following shaila: Hayu chamisha toivin noisai. 5 people are demanding from someone different things, all kinds of different things. These things that were mentioned here, and va'amru loi. And what are they demanding? They say 10 lanu, pay us back. Each one of them is demanding from him a pekadin, a deposit, sumas yad, a loan, gezel, a robbery, aveda, a lost item. Sheyesh lanu biyadcha. Each one of them says, you owe this to us. Now, how did this person respond when he swore falsely? So Amalek meant to the first one, he said, Shvua she'en lecha biyadi, pekadin, sesumis yad, gezel, va'aveda. So he clearly specified all of them, all 4 things that were demanded of him, that I don't owe it to you. So that's clear that it'll be chayiv for the 4 things that he specified. But now, regarding the other 4 people that also demanded all these 4 things, he said, v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha, v'loy lecha, and v'loy lecha. Not you, not you, not you, but over there by them, he'll be chayiv for each one of these people separately because he said loy lecha, but he didn't specify all the details that each one of them wants from him. So mahu, what's going to be the halacha? Do I say achadam chayiv for the other 4 people? He'll be chayiv only once, which means he'll be chayiv in total only 8 karbanis for swearing falsely 8 times. Or do I say when he says vil loy lecha akol chadav achadam chayiv? The vil loy lecha refers back to all the details that he already specified by the first person, which means that if it's 5 different people and he's denying to all of them all these 4 items that they're demanding from him, he'll be chayiv to bring 20 karbanis. Says the Gemara, Tashama, I'll prove this to you from the Braisa that we just quoted before in the name of Rab Chiya, the Tanya Rab Chiya, that in this case he said, Harekan esrim chatois. You bring 20 times a karban chatos for denying to all of these people, these 5 people, that is, 20 different items. So now, what case was Rab Chiya talking about? Hey chidami. Either parish, if the case Rab Chiya was talking about is where the person specified for each one of the 5 people that I swear that I don't owe you each one of these 4 items. So Rab Chiya is coming to count for you. He has to give you the number. If he clearly specified each one of them and swore falsely, it's obvious that he would be chayiv 20 times. Elalav, what is Rab Chiya coming to teach? The loy parish. He did not specify. He only said it like the case of the Iboye here. By the first person he specified, and by the rest he did not. Once he specified for the first person, for the rest, even without specifying, it follows what he said by the first, and he'll be chayiv each one of them separately, and he'll be chayiv 20 times. Going back to the Mishnah, it said on anasta upatisa es bitichulu. A person is demanding from someone that he has to pay because he was ma'anis or mafata, his daughter. He had a relation with her, either against her will or with her will. And in both of these cases, he has to pay a knas of 50 coins. So the Tanakama says that if he swears falsely about this, he's chayiv. And Rab Shimon says that in such a case, he's potter. And now the rule is for a knas, if a person denies having a knas that he owes, then he's potter. But Rab Shimon still says in this case he's chayiv. Why? Because Rab Shimon says, besides the payment of the knas, which is a set amount of 50 coins, you also have to pay boishes and pagam, which is the embarrassment of the girl and the fact that you defiled her and her value goes down. So therefore Rab Shimon says you still be chayiv for that the person denied that amount of money that he owes. So what's the explanation of the machlokes here? So Amar Rab Chiya bar Abba Amar Rab Yochanan, my time is Rab Shimon. How do we explain Rab Shimon's opinion? Since the main thing that's being demanded here is knas, okay, so Rab Shimon, again, so I might have confused the opinions before. Rab Shimon is actually the one that says that in such a case, let me just see in the words of the Mishnah, yes, Rab Shimon is the one that says in such a case you would be potter. Even though there is also a money payment here. It's not just a payment of knas. So why does Rab Shimon say you potter? Because hoyel v'ikir knas uteveya. When the father of this girl is demanding payment, the main payment that he's demanding is the knas payment. There is additional payment, but the main payment is the knas, and therefore, when the person denies this, he's primarily denying the knas, and therefore will be potter. Now, Amar Rav explains Rab Shimon's opinion. Mashal the Rab Shimon, to explain why Rab Shimon in this case would say you're potter. What could we compare this to? Lamad David Daime. What does it compare to? A person that's demanding from his friend, pay me wheat, barley, and spelt that you have in your hands for me. And the person answers, I can swear that wheat I don't have for you. I didn't swear about the barley and the spelt. Now, what does it turn out to be? That it was true. The chitin u'de lesle, that he doesn't owe him any wheat, but hasayr v'kusman islay, and he does owe him barley and spelt, which he never denied. So in such a case, the potter, he'll be potter, because the chi ishtaba achitin kushtam ishtaba. He's swearing about the wheat, and that's true, that he doesn't owe him any wheat. So Rava is saying that over here it's similar. What the father was demanding is the payment of the knas, and he denied the payment of the knas. So in such a case, the knas is the main payment, and regarding knas, there's no chiyuv of a shvuah, and therefore he'll be potter for this. Even though there's additional payments here, but that's not what was demanded of him. The main payment is the knas, and therefore regarding knas, if he denies that, he'll be potter. Okay, but the Gemara now asks the obvious question: you can't compare these two cases. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says, how do you give this example? Midami, what kind of a comparison is there here? Hassam, in the example that Rava gave, Bechitin kakafale, he's demanding of him 3 items, Chitim, Sayrin, and Kusman. And now the Chitin he's denying, Besayrin the Kusman, like kakafale. Regarding the other 2 items, the barley and the spelt, he's not denying it all, he didn't say anything. But what happened over here? The father is saying, you're ma'anas my daughter, and you have to pay me 3 modes of payment, Knas, Baishes, and Pagam. Even if the Knas is the main payment, but the fact is he has to pay all these 3 types of payment. So, Bekula Milsu, the Kakafale, when he denies and says that, no, I was not ma'anas your daughter, he's denying all 3 modes of payment. So even if the main payment is the knas, it doesn't matter though. But he did deny the other monies that he should have paid, and therefore it should be considered a case of a person that's denying a regular money payment, not just a knas payment. So therefore, Abai goes on to say, Halei Damya, what would the case that we're speaking about here be compared to? A person that tells his friend, pay me these 3 types that I have in your hand. And how does the person respond? And he says, I don't owe you any of this. And it comes out that Chitin Ude Lesle, that in one party was right, he doesn't owe him any wheat, but Hasayr of Kusm Isle, but he does owe him barley and spelt. The Mechayev, because he denied it all, in such a case it would be Chayev. So what Abai is saying is, the same should be in our case. When a father says, you will ma'anas my daughter, what he's in effect saying is, you owe me knas, baishis, and pagam, 3 things. And when he says, no, I was not ma'anas your daughter, he's denying it all. So even if knas you can't be chayiv for, but for the other things that he denied, you should be chayiv. So how do we explain Rav Shimon's opinion? Why is he potter? So Ravin. He said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan a different shot. L'divrei Rav Shimon, according to Rav Shimon's opinion, Knas hu teveya v'loi b'shus upagam. When the father is saying, you will ma'anas my daughter, he's demanding the payment only of Knas and not b'shus upagam. He's not demanding this right now. Now, why not? The Gemara will say the svar in a moment. But it's not, the ikr is Knas. No, he's demanding only Knas, not b'shus upagam. So if it's only Knas, on Knas there's no chiyuv of a false shvua. Now, Divrei Chachamim, however, according to the Chachamim's opinion, af b'shus upagam hu teveya. He's demanding not only the Knas, but he's also demanding Baishas Upagam, or maybe even primarily the payment of the Baishas Upagam. Now, the Gemara explains, what is the basis, what's the svara of the argument here? So, Rav Papa explains as follows. Rav Shimon Savar, Rav Shimon holds, a person that has something, money to demand of his friend, and there's something which is a set amount and something which is complicated. You have to evaluate and it's not a set amount. What is he going to come and demand? He'll demand what's a set amount. And he's not going to demand what's not a set amount. So over here, when he says, you were ma'anas my daughter, there's a set amount of 50 kesef, that is what he's demanding. He's not demanding the other amount, which is not a set amount. And as the Rishonim add to this, he's demanding only the knas, because he doesn't want to demand it all at the same time, because the person is not going to pay it all at the same time. So right now, what he's saying is, 50 coins, that's clear, you owe it to me, give it to me right now. The other amount of the Baishis and Pagam is not clear, we'll see about that later. So if he's only demanding Knas, and he's denying it, for Knas there's no Shvuah when you swear falsely. However, the Rabbanan say, no, there's a different svara. Leishavik midi, person would not leave alone a demand, that this is a kind of demand that even if the person you're demanding it from would admit, he would not be exempt. It's a stronger demand. That's regarding a money payment, which is the Baishas and the Pagam. The Baishas and Pagam is a money payment, and this he's certain that it'll get paid, even if he admits to it. And he wouldn't demand the Knas, which is something that he may not even end up getting, because if you're made in a Knas, the halacha is that you potter. So therefore, fakert, the Rabbanan say the main demand that the father is demanding is the payment of the Baishas and Pagam, and on that, if he swears falsely about it, there will be a chiyuv for swearing falsely. It's a money matter, and it's not a Knas, and therefore he will be chayev. Hadran Allah, Shavuos HaPekadon. We shall return to you the fifth Perek of Masechta Shavuos, Perek Shavuos HaPekadon. Okay, let's begin the next Perek. This is starting a new subject. The halachis of Shavuos HaDayanin. Shavuos HaDayanin is in a din Torah, in a court case where a person is chayev to swear. There are a few cases min ha-Torah where a person is chayev to swear, moide b'miktsas, when a person admits partially to a claim, when there's an eidecha that's testifying against him, or by shomrim, by a person that's keeping a deposit, as we'll see details later in the Masechta here. But here, this Mishnah begins with the Shavuos HaDayanim regarding the moide b'miktsas. And it tells us all the details of the halachis regarding moide b'miktsas, when would he be chayev to swear. Sagt der Heilige Mishnah, Shavuos HaDayanim. The shvuah that the judges have a person swear in a din Torah, and Rashi here brings the pasuk that this Mishnah here is speaking specifically about moide b'miktsas, which is learned from the pasuk Asher Yoymar Ki Huzeh. So again, the concept of moide b'miktsas is when one is demanding $100 and the person admits to 50, so that 50 he has to pay. But then for the other 50 that he denies, he has to swear that he doesn't owe it. That's learned from Ki Huzeh. So here are the details of when he would be chayiv. Hataina. Shtei kesef. The claim has to be a minimum amount of 2 kesef. Now, the term shtei kesef refers not what kind of kesef does this refer to? It refers to the smallest amount of a coin, a ma'ah. Every ma'ah is the 6 ma'ah for a dinner, so it has to be at least 2 of these silver ma'ah coin. Gemara will bring the sources in the psukim for everything. Now, the ha'idah, the amount that he has to be admitting to be chayiv to swear, is b'shava pruta. It has to be at least a value of b'shava pruta. If what he admits to is not of the same type that the one that was claiming was claiming, then potter will be potter. And the Mishnah right here gives an example for this last halacha. This is one shot in the Mishnah. There's a few different shatim in the Gemara in the Mishnah, but this is one shot. Now, keitzad. So what's the case? Shtei kesef libiyotcha. If a person says to his friend, I have 2 pieces of silver in your hand. Here, when the Mishnah says kesef, it's not referring to coins. It's referring to pieces of silver. 2 pieces of silver you have for me in your hands. And how does he respond? Ein lecha biyadi ela pruta. I don't have pieces of silver for you. I have pruta, which is copper. I have a copper piece that's in the value of pruta in my hands. So potter. He'll be potter because he asked him for silver and he admits the copper. Now, however, if he says shtei kesef u pruta li biyadcha, there are two pieces of silver and a copper pruta in your hands, and then he responds, ein lecha biyadi ela pruta, I only owe you this copper pruta, then he'll be chayiv because he's admitting to a pruta which was also from the same type, included in what he was demanding of him, because part of the claim was also that pruta. So then he'll be chayiv. Another case says the Mishnah, Mana lebiyadcha, a person is claiming you owe a mana, ein lecha biyadi, and he says, I don't owe you a penny. So in such a case, potter, because he is a kafir akal, he denies at all you potter. Mana lebiyadcha, if he's demanding of him a mana, and he's a ma'id b'miktzas, he says, ein lecha biyadi ala chamishim dinner, I only owe you 50 dinner from this mana, then chayiv. This is the ma'id b'miktzas that you're chayiv. Now, if it's a case where a person is claiming and says, Mana la'abba biyadcha, that your father owed me money, he passed away, he didn't pay me, but your father owed me money. And the son says, Ein lecha biyadi, elanun dinner, that no, my father only owed you 50 dinner. So in such a case, potter, the person that's maida will be potter, because he's like returning a lost object, because in such a case, it's very easy for the son to just deny the whole claim. The son, which is not the person that borrowed the money, so he could very easily just say to him, I don't know what you're talking about. My father never owed you a penny. So when he's admitting even that half, it's like he's returning a lost object. And in such a case, Rashi brings it from the Gemara and Gittin, Chachamim instituted whenever a person is returning a lost object, there's no shvur. So this case is considered to be a Meishav Aveda. Now, what exactly the son knows? Does the son know about? Does the son not know? Okay, the Gemara will discuss it. Another case says the Mishnah, Manu lebiyadcha, a person says, you owe me a money. And Amalei, the person admits and says, yes, it's true. Now, Lamacha, the next day, he comes to him and says, Amalei, Taneyuli, so pay me the money, you admitted that you owe me. And now the next day he says, Nesativ loch, I already paid you. So potter. He's going to be potter to pay because it's actually possible that he already paid him. However, if he says, Eilucha biyadi, if today all of a sudden he denies the whole thing and he says, I don't owe you a penny, I never borrowed anything from you, then chayiv, then he'll be chayiv because he already admitted yesterday that he did borrow. So I'll be chayiv. If it's a ma'id b'miktzas, I'll be chayiv ashua. Now, if a person says this trend mana libiyatcha, he claims you owe me a mana, and amalei hein, he says yes, I owe you this mana. And now the one that claims makes a deal with him and says al tetneili ela be'edim. He knows there could be a problem here. He's going to pay him not in front of Edim. He says, I want you to pay me only in front of Edim. That's the deal. Now lamacha amaloi, the next day he says tenayuli, pay me. And now he says, Nesativ lach, I already paid you. Chayiv is going to have to pay. They made an agreement that he's only going to pay in front of Edom, so you can't claim that he paid otherwise. Now, another case here, the Mishnah goes back to specifying cases regarding the fact that what he admits to has to be from the same min, from the same type of what was claimed from him. So if what was claimed was litra zav yesh libiyotcha, I have a litra, which is a certain weight of gold in your hands. And he answers, En lecha biyadi ala litra kesef. I owe you that amount of, I have a litra, but it's of silver. So potter, it's not the same min as what was claimed from him. Now, however, if it's coins, not pieces of gold or silver, dinner, zav yesh libiyotcha, a dinner, a golden dinner I have in your hands. And he responds, En lecha biyadi ela, I owe you, I have coins of yours, but it's not a gold coin, it's a different coin. Dinner kesef, or trisis, pundis, prute, various different kinds of coins, then chayiv. Then this is considered to be all the same min, and he's chayiv. Shakol min matbeya achas. It's, even though it's different qualities of coins, and this is silver, this is gold, this is copper, but it's all coins, that's one min, and he's chayiv. A similar halacha, if someone is claiming from his friend, kor tvua li biyotcha, you owe me the measurement of a kor of tvua. And so this is grain. And he says, he admits to half of a kor, which is a lesech, but to a whole different type, to beans. So then potter will be potter. Now, however, if what's claimed is kor peiris libiyotcha, produce, I have produce of mine in your hands. So he didn't specify what it is. And he answers, I owe you a half a kor of beans. And then chayiv, then it'll be chayiv shakitnis b'chlal peiris, because since he used the term of peiris, which includes everything, and he answers kitnis, that's included in peiris, and he'll be chayiv. Now, Tani Chitin, here's the famous and typical case of when you admit to something which is not the same min as what was claimed. Tani Chitin, if he claimed, you owe me wheat, and he admits that he owes barley, potter. In such a case, he'll be potter. It's not the same min. But Rabbi Gamliel, Machayev. And Rabbi Gamliel says that even if what you admit to is not the same min, you'll still be chayev. So Rabbi Gamliel is simply going on all other cases here in the Mishnah. He argues with this whole entire rule that it has to be from the same min when you admit. Rabbi Gamliel says it does not have to be from the same min, you'll still be chayev. A person is claiming from his friend jugs of oil. Now, he admitted, he says, I have empty jugs of yours, but not with any oil in it. So what exactly was it that was being claimed from him? Is it really just oil, which happened to be contained in jugs, but he's really demanding just oil? Or what's being claimed is both, the oil and the jugs? So Adman says, partially he is admitting to what the claim was, even though he's not admitting to the oil, but he's admitting to the jugs. That's part of the claim, Yeshava. So he's chayiv and he has to swear for this. However, the Chachamim say, Ein ahida mimin atayna. What he admitted to is not of the same type of what was claimed from him, because really what was claimed from him is just oil. And when he admits to jugs, that's a completely different min. But Rabbi Gamliel, regarding this, Rabbi Gamliel says, Raya ani es divrei admain, I agree to admain, that when a person is demanding jugs of oil, he means the oil together with the jugs. Another halacha, this next part of the Mishnah is based on the concept that when it comes to a shvuah, you only swear on movable items, not on pieces of land, on land, on karka. And the Gemara will learn this later out from Sukkim. We had it already before. It's learned out from a klala prat to klal. Okay, so that's whether the claim was karka, whether he admitted to karka. You're not chayav to swear. So therefore, tane kelim v'karkois. If he claimed you owe me vessels, movable items, vessels, and karkois, land, territory. Now, v'hoide bekelim, he admitted that he owes the vessels, v'kafar bekarkois, and he denied the properties. Or the opposite, bekarkois, he admitted that he owes the properties, but v'kafar bekelim, he denied owing the vessels. So potter, in both of these cases, is going to be potter, because, as I mentioned, whether the claim is karka, or whether what he denied is karka, whether what he admitted to is karka, you're going to be potter. Now, if in this case, if he denied everything, and there's just a little bit of karka that he was made to, so then in such a case, he'll also be potter, because the haida, what he's made is only karka, so you won't be chai for that. Now, if the case though is b'miktsas hakelim, if he denied everything, and he admitted to, what he admitted to is a little bit of kalim, so then chayiv, then he will be chayiv, because then what it basically means is that there's, in kalim itself, there's part of the kalim that he's admitting, and part of the kalim that he's denying. So even if you put aside the karka, in the claim here, which has kalim in it, there's both a denial and admitting regarding the kalim. So therefore, that's movable kalim, and for this will be chayiv. And now he'll actually be chayiv to swear not only for the kalim, but he'll have to swear also for the karka as well. Why is that? Even though usually for karka you don't swear. And the reason is because shanachasim she'elam achrayis, properties where there's no responsibility over them, which is a term that the Mishnah uses regarding movable items that could be here today and gone tomorrow. So once you chayiv to swear for this, they drag along, and this is the concept of Gilgul Shvuah. Once you're swearing regarding the kalim, because here there's both an admittal and a denial for the kalim, then you also swear, you magalgal the shvuah to swear on the karka as well, and therefore he's going to be chayiv to swear on everything. The final halacha of the Mishnah says, Ein nishban, you do not swear al tainas, cheresh, sheite, v'kotan. If it's a deaf or mentally deranged or a child that is demanding of you something and you are made of a miktsas, you're not chayiv a shvuah in such a case. Ve'ein mashbi'en es a cotton does not swear, aval nishban likotan, but you do swear for a cotton. The Mishnah is pretty obviously contradicting itself. It just said that you don't swear for a cotton. The Gemara will address this. Ule hektish, and also if there's an argument with hektish, so a person will also have to swear about this. This would be in a case where a lender wants to collect a certain property that was owed to him, and the person was makdish it, and he wants to take it away from hektish. So then, in such a case, he would have to swear. Okay, so now let's learn one piece of the Gemara over here. The Gemara says, "Hey chemish bein alei." How does a person swear? This whole halacha of Shavuos Dayanim, whenever Bezdin administers an oath on a person that has to swear in a court case, how does he swear? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, so Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, Mashbiya Noisai, Shvuah Ha'amura B'Torah. He swears like the language of the Shvuah that it says in the Torah. The Chsev, the pasuk where Avram had Eliezer swear for him when he went for the Shidduch for Yitzchak, it says Vashbiyacha Ba'Hashem Elokei Hashemayim. So you have to make the Shvuah with the name of the Eibishter. And it says there, Ba'Hashem, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. So you have to swear in the Shem HaMefeidesh of Hashem. So that's how the Gemara understands this. So Amalei Ravina Ravashi, so Ravina says to Ravashi about this command, according to whose opinion is Rav saying this. We had this in the previous Perek. It's like Rab Chanina Baridi that says the Omar, Be'inan Shem HaMeyuchad, that when one swears falsely, by Shavuos HaPekadim, Shavuos HaEdus, it's only if it's with the Shem HaMeyuchad of the Eibishter. So here as well, you swear with the Shem HaMeyuchad. Amalei, so Ravashi said that's not what Rav meant. Afilah Teimah Rabbanan, Rav was saying, even according to Rabbanan, the Omri Bekinoi, the Rabbanan say that when you swear falsely, it's not only with the Shem HaMeyuchad, it's even with a nickname as well. But over here, though, he meant something else. When he was comparing to Avram and Eliezer, the relevance of that was that when you swear, you have to hold a holy object of a mitzvah, like a Sefer Torah or tefillin in your hands. Similar to the way it was by Avram and Eliezer, that Avram tells Eliezer that he should hold the milah, that was the only object of a mitzvah in that time, when he makes a shvuah. And as Rava said, Rava said, Hi, Daina da Ashba B'Hashem Elokei Hashemayim. A judge that has someone swear in a bezdin, and he's swearing with the name of Hashem, but he's not holding a Sefer Torah in his hands. It's like he made a mistake in something that it says clearly in the Mishnah, and he has to have him swear again. Yeah, in order for the severity of the shvuah to be there, the person should realize what it is that he's doing when he's swearing. It has to be holding something like a Sefer Torah in his hands. So Rashi here says, even though this is not a Dvar Mishnah, it's only a statement of Rav, but this is something that everybody should know, and he would have to swear again. Rav Papa said, Hi, Daina Dashba B'Tfilin. A judge that has someone swear while he's holding tefillin in his hands as an object that's holy of a mitzvah, that's also not good enough. It's also a mistake, and he has to swear again. But the Gemara says we don't paskin this way. We paskin like Rava that it's not enough to swear with the name of Hashem. You have to be holding an object of a mitzvah in your hands. But we don't paskin like Rav Papa. You can swear either holding a Sefer Torah in your hands or tefillin. If he does not have an object of a mitzvah in his hands, it's not going to be a good shvuah. As long as he has in his hands a tefillin, even if it's not a Sefer Torah, it's good enough that the shvuah should take effect. Another detail, shvuah mu'umad. Generally, when one swears, he has to be standing. However, Talmud Chacham, by a Talmud Chacham, miyushiv, he swears sitting for the cover of the Talmud Chacham. Shvuah b'Sefer Torah, generally you do swear holding a Sefer Torah in your hands. Talmud Chacham, but however by a Talmud Chacham, l'chatchila b'tfilin. L'chatchila, he can swear even just holding tefillin in his hands. Now Rashi here brings that in our generations, this whole concept of swearing that is minat Torah, with a Sefer Torah, the way it was done originally is bottled. We don't do this anymore because it's a very severe matter. And today, it's Bezin just gives a order, a curse in front of 10 people, and that's how it's done, but not with a Sefer Torah, not with tefillin.